My name is Davis Wardwell. I'm 18
My name
years
is
old.
Lisa
My name is
Hannon.
Noah Blunt. I'm the student pastor here
Trio
at Westside.
Glenn. I'm actually Charlie's cousin.
David Thomas, here with Charlie.
Austin Gregory. Thank you for having
My
me.
name is Donovan
My name is
Jones.
Micah Aver. I'm a student at Lounge High
All
School.
right. Well, Mr. Charlie, you're going to lead us out here tonight on your Young Minds podcast.
Welcome back to the Davis's Minds podcast. I'm your host, Davis Wardwell, and right now I'm going to go ahead and stop you. If you haven't re-listened to the intro, listen to it again. See who starts it. Sneak peek, it's me. And today I will be interviewing the one, the only, Charlie Banks.
Bro, I'm so glad to be on. And if you haven't figured it out yet, Davis is going to be taking over this episode for the 100th episode, and I couldn't think of anybody else to take this over. There's very few people that I would ask to do this because I've done this for 100 plus episodes now. But now I get a break, and he's come up with all the questions. I barely know anything about them. But Davis, just take it away.
He thinks he has a break.
Oh, great.
No, but seriously, I'm absolutely honored to be on this. I can't tell you enough how much this means to me. I know how much time you've spent and how much work you put into this podcast, and I'm just absolutely honored to be able to host it for a day.
Yeah, man. And at the end, I'll probably ask you a question too, about that, your experience hosting this podcast, because I'm curious.
I think that would fit.
Yeah.
All right, question number one.
Yep.
This is a serious one.
Ooh, yeah.
If you were president, what would your first order be?
Ooh, that's a big one.
Yeah.
That's really big. Now, if I had it my way, I would just say put God back in schools as the first one.
Okay.
Because there's clear studies of you look at how when God was in schools and then when he wasn't, the test scores went down, everything went down. Moods went down, test scores went down, everything just declined in our country. And then we started living for the world, and look what happened. And I will swear up and down. I know that it's a generational thing or whatever. Our parents' generation didn't stand up for that back. And their generation didn't their parents' generation didn't stand up back in the '60s, and now we're having to suffer for it. All of us are, right? And but that'd be one of the things I would definitely do. There's a lot of stuff I would do, but that'd be one of the main things for sure. If I had my way, I'd try to put God back in schools the best way I could. Or at least instill some sort of those values, even if there wasn't an exact way to do that. At least put godly values in there. I'm not trying to sneak them in there, but you know what I mean.
I gotcha.
Because you can, because I've talked to some people that are teachers, they try to instill godly values in their teaching without saying talking about Jesus. Because you can do that. The principles of God, you can put them in there without verbally saying His name or Jesus, or, anything about that. So.
That's good. He did not know that question, and he just came up with that good an answer. I've known this question for about a week, and I've been sitting here stirring on it, and the best I came up with was a legal penalty for people who did not put their shopping cart backwards.
That's good though, dude. That's funny because I was with Noah one time, and I said, dude, that makes me so mad. He's like, what? That person had put the shopping cart back. And the bad part was the day that I said that, we had to do the exact same thing and not put our shopping cart back because we were in such a rush. And I was like, it's the one time I'll allow it, Noah. And any other times I will make you put it back. So,
yep. And if it was a law, even that one time you would have put it back.
Right. Right.
Number 2, another very serious one. If you were thrown on a deserted island, what 5 things would you bring?
Ooh. And if anything, right?
Anything.
Okay. Well, first, my Bible.
Good answer.
Second one, a number for a helicopter. And then the third one, a phone. And then fourth and fifth, I guess, would be food and water. But, you wouldn't need the other ones if you have a number for a helicopter. So,
that's true.
But if I was stuck, of course my Bible always, and I don't want to say people say, oh, my family, but you don't want them stuck there too. I don't know, maybe a TV antenna or something, so I can listen to Pastor Robbie's sermons or something. Like, I don't know. Like, you got to get that good word in. Like, well, even though you're stuck on does that? Oh my gosh, an island. You know,
Shout out there. That's good.
Yeah, I mean, like, you got to get the word in. So yeah,
that's good. Mm-hmm. Number 3, who would be? And I think I already know the answer to this one. Mm-hmm. Who would be at your dream concert?
Well, I've seen them. So Phil Wickham and Brandon Lake. But if I had to say people that I haven't, seen or whatever, Forrest Frank's a good one. I love Forrest Frank. He's got a lot of good music. Oh gosh, there's like so many people, bro. Casting Crowns, like all like the big Christian artists that you can name off, like contemporary. I would have them there. Like, I'd be like,
so a big, like, huge concert.
Oh, dude, and like I've got like big ambitions. Like, I think I've got like. My brain's always popping off with new ideas and stuff like that, and I've even joked around. Well, not really joked around. I've kind of just said it would be awesome. Imagine if I teased that I was interviewing Phil Wickham and Brandon Lake, and that I came up on stage at Northside, and I showed a clip from the interview, and then we close it with, and guess what? They're coming here to sing. So I would flip.
Oh, that would be
See
so
how
cool.
sick that would be? I'm telling you, like, and I know that like it's a big thing, but I feel like it could happen someday.
I agree.
Yeah.
So Phil Wickham and Brandon Lake, if you are listening,
please
reach out.
Please reach out to me right now. Please.
Oh, that's good. If you can meet 3 people, living or dead, who would they be? And I know Jesus would have been your number 1,
right? But
we're gonna
okay.
Not
I'm
use
glad
him
because people have. Oh, you're good. People have asked me that question before, and I'm glad you said that because. On like a previous podcast when we did something similar, I said that, and then the way that I said it, I didn't want people to think like, gosh, that sounded kind of like, because I was being sarcastic. Like I was like, obviously, I would say Jesus, but I didn't want to like say that because of, that'd be the obvious answer. But if it was 3 people dead or alive,
I do remember when Jeff asked a similar question. It
Yeah.
was, what 3 people would you interview?
Yeah.
So I'm curious if anything's changed.
Yeah, well, to be honest with you, I don't remember what I said.
Good.
So one, I would say, would just be interesting to hear his point on, or to hear his thoughts on things. Would be George Washington. What do you think the country's like now? Like, what do you think? Right, you were the one that started this country. Now, what do you think it's like now? I would love to know. And just. And what his thoughts are, to other people. That's kind of difficult. Oh boy. I would say Franklin Graham, maybe. He would be a good one. And then also, even though I know he's got some controversy about him, he was a part of a giant movement, in the 70s. Lonnie Frisbee would be a good one. He was a part of the Jesus movement in California. Yes. Sure. And here's the thing about it. They say, "Oh, he's got controversy." Well, who doesn't?
Ain't
right?
That the truth?
Who doesn't? Right? Because we all have a sinful nature. Who doesn't have controversy of some kind, even if like it hasn't, come out yet? Like if you haven't verbally or said, "Oh, I believe in this," or this and that, or I've done this. Everybody's got something we don't agree with. You don't agree with somebody 100%.
Even Jesus had controversy around him.
That's right.
A lot of it.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
All right. Do you think it is harder now than ever before for Christians to avoid sin in their lives, with it being so in your face? And if so, why?
Why? Yes, 100%. And one thing that I think of, and we've kind of discussed it, there was like 1 or 2 questions we did discuss, just to preface, just to make sure that we were hitting the marks on some of them, especially with cell phones. It's in your face, and you get so many different opinions about whatever. You can look up anybody's opinion on anything, whether you agree with it or disagree with it, and it might make you mad or make you excited about something, whatever. But one of the biggest things I think is like temptation and sexual sin. You see that everywhere, whether it be movies, TV shows, whatever, or on your phones. Just it pops up, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying girls go through. Because I know they do, but I'm saying it's really rough for guys. I think too. Just because we're 2 guys sitting here, I can vouch for that. I can understand that it's just everywhere, and I'm like, and I even saw like a study done that was saying something like even our generation doesn't want that stuff as much in like movies and stuff, which I don't know how true it is because You see stuff like that done all the time, and you're like, how true is it? I hope it's true, because, I mean, really, a lot of movies, I'm like, that was so unnecessary. You didn't have to you just wanted to throw it in there just because it might, make more money or something that way.
Yeah.
Which, it's really, of course, it's the world, so what are you going to, what do you expect? But it really is like, man, they care about money more than they care about our purity. Mm-hmm. And, that's what we have to realize, too. And when whatever we go watch or see or whatever, we have to really think about that kind of stuff, Yeah.
I think that's really good. And I think as Christians, I think a lot of us do a very poor job of being intentional not to watch, or like Jacob Conger said in a podcast, to what we are listening to music-wise. Because I think there's a lot of people who watch movies and TV shows that are Christians, and it's kind of like they kind of feel like it's
on the edge.
It's on the edge, but it's okay, and they make an excuse. Well, everyone else does it, or they try to not think about it to justify watching or listening to this stuff.
Yeah. But
in reality, that's not what the Bible says at all.
And just to say, the fact that you remember that Jacob said that, bro, I mean, that just jogged my memory. I forgot he said that. Like, see, I mean, I know that sounds so bad, but when you do 100+ episodes, you kind of forget about what somebody said. And the fact that you remembered is awesome. But
that was good.
Yeah.
He had a good point there.
He did, yeah. Really did.
Yeah. Next question.
Okay.
And this is a long one.
Oh, so boy. All right.
Be prepared.
I'm ready for it. Okay.
With the growth of the gay and transgender community, I think students and young people especially could use some godly advice on how to handle these complicated situations of witnessing to these groups of people and explaining their sins to them without seeming like pious or prideful or insulting.
Yeah.
How should Christians approach witnessing to this, I'm doing quotes with my fingers, gay community? Is it the same as you would approach sharing the gospel with anyone else, or would you change your witnessing approach?
Now, this was one we did discuss a little bit.
Yes, and he had a little bit of an insider on that one.
And, I would say you do kind of change it a little bit, just because I think it depends on the person that you're talking to. If you've already got that good rapport with them, then maybe not. It depends on the situation. You got to read it right and discern right about what should I say here, and what would you have me say here, and what not to say, right? Yeah. And I'll just give you a an example. I think I've told you this already, but for people that don't know, I had a friend of mine who was in a class class with me a couple months ago, maybe about it was a couple months ago now. She said she was lesbian. And here's the thing about that. We were really good friends, and I still talk with her some. I even saw her at FCA the other day, and the fact that she was there was really, really cool. Just a little plug there, but. She was really open, and that's another thing. She was really open to it. Some are not going to be, about what I had to say, because she knew it was passionate. It was passionate for me, and she wanted to hear what I had to say, and she wanted to hear me out. And some aren't going to be that way. But, what was really neat was that she didn't, get in my face or whatever. And she asked me, she said, straight up to my face, she said, "Do you hate gay people?" I said, "I don't hate you, but I hate the sin. I don't agree with what your lifestyle is. But I don't hate you at all. You're a really great person, but I don't have to agree with what your lifestyle is." And that might be the textbook answer, but it's a good one.
It's a very good one. I mean, we're not supposed to hide from the sin, of course. We're not going to act like it's not there. But we do need to remind these people that they are loved by God. They're a creation of God. And their sin is just like any other sin that any lost person struggles with.
Yeah. And what was so interesting about that class, for example, because that was the one that I actually, surveyed for the 1-year anniversary, and that's why they kept asking me all those questions, right? Was you had a lot of different opinions in there. She was, open to hear what I had to say, and then there were some that just didn't take it seriously whatsoever. But then she saw that, and I think it had an impact on her, because she saw how Christians, or me as a Christian, was being treated by others. And she was like, well, dang, what's he? He's just trying to. No, he's not trying to push anything on you or whatever. Right. But I think that really, and I could be so wrong, but I feel like it maybe had an impact on her. If that was what my job was to do in that class, then, hey, I'm happy. Did something.
That's awesome, and that's the thing about this is the sin. So for her, it's she's loving or thinks she loves another woman.
Yep.
In that way, to fill a hole in her heart, to fill a gap, but it's not going to work. And that's the thing is, it's a Jesus gap. It's not another girl or a boy or anything can fill that gap. And so when And she probably knows that deep down, that it's not working. And so when you're talking about Jesus and you're talking about what can really satisfy, I think maybe she can't help but have to listen to it.
Yeah.
You know?
And, like I have said, it was really neat. What was neat about that time when she came to FCA was the one time she came, she was invited by a friend, and it happened to be the one that I was speaking at. She didn't know I was speaking at all, but it happened to be the one that I was speaking at, and I was like, look at God go. Just look at that. We were talking about it a couple months ago, and, I was probably about one of the other times that she was exposed to God, like, maybe in a while. I don't know if she's ever had, gone to church or whatever. I think she maybe said she had went when she was younger or something. But besides that, I've been the only time that, God said, hey, go talk to her or whatever, and it was really cool for her to be back. And I was like, oh my gosh, look at that. That was really neat, And she came up to me afterwards and said that was really cool, and, it was cool to see what, you're talking about the podcast and all that, and it's cool to see you doing that and, like, sitting there and doing what you like to do.
That's so cool.
It was, bro. It was really neat.
Absolutely awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Do you think, now this is a tough one to think on.
Okay.
We also already talked about this one a little bit.
Yeah.
For the listener. Do you think there is an issue, especially in the Bible Belt, with Christians viewing American patriotism as an idol?
This right here, this was a really good one, and I might steal it for future episodes. I'm not gonna lie. Yes, I do think there is, but also it depends on the person. I think, because even my personal testimony is, I think before I found Jesus, my personality was kind of like patriotism. Heck yeah, like just love America, and I still do. I love this country a lot, but it did take a back seat in terms of my motivations or whatnot. And I can give a clear example of that with I have a nonprofit called Operation Patriotism, and it serves first responders. That's just that's really patriotic. But what took precedent to that is this podcast has been, I would say, more important to me than the nonprofit is. The nonprofit, I love serving, and it's great, and I've been able to tie Jesus back into that a few times, and get people to serve and stuff. And I'm not saying that it hasn't been great, because it is, but that's a clear example of God using. He's like, you need to talk to people, and you need to learn their stories.
That's a perfect example.
Yeah, but but it just depends on the person. I think because you'll meet your diehard people. I saw like the other day, it was like you got signs that say like Jesus and Trump or like whatever, and and the thing about it is, I get why you tie those two things together, because it's more old school values, and whatnot, like. Like patriotism is more, and that's another thing too. Patriotism is more tied with conservatism and all that, and like it's more, and stuff like that. And I'm like, it shouldn't be that way, even though we it's weird, and we've talked, and me and my parents have talked about this. It's bad when you can assume what somebody believes when you see an American flag in their yard. Right? Like, you see an American flag in somebody's yard, and you go, oh, I bet you they either are a Christ follower or they're at least a Republican. And that's sad. That's where our country's gotten to, is where, that we're so, like, one-sided, or, like, we're so split down the middle. And then when it comes to, the fact that, you kind of, people do lump Jesus into that, which, it shouldn't be that way at all, It should be that, because Jesus loves everybody.
Yeah.
He doesn't just love one side, and I've always found it a little bit weird. Like, yeah, sure, the like some people, they may get riled up like in a good way about the signs or whatever, but I'm like, at the end of the day though, people may feel like that are on the opposite political spectrum. They might feel like, well, dang, does Jesus not love me or something? If there's not like a sign that says, Democrats and Jesus or something. Yeah. Like, I know that's a silly example, but like, because Jesus wouldn't alienate people, but we kind of do with the political side of things.
I completely see what you're saying. We've created a culture where we're defined by our political agenda, and so it makes people feel like if they're not on the same political agenda, then they're not welcome.
Right.
But that's the thing is, and this is what we talked about last on the phone call that time. As Christians, we have to remember that we're not. Our eternity citizenship is not here in America, but we have citizenship in heaven.
That's right.
And it's so much more important than our citizenship in America.
Yep.
As much as I am a patriotic guy.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
That's good. How do Christians in a sinful world practice our faith and try our best to be holy through the Holy Spirit's intervention in our lives without coming across as pious or prideful?
Ooh, that's a good one.
So that's kind of going back to one of the earlier questions.
Yeah. When it comes, for one, getting in your word is essential. And I will be the first to tell you right now, I am not the best at that. That is one of the things I struggle with the most is because I get so busy and everything I just have a busy schedule that sometimes I just don't sit down and read. And I think what that stems from too is I've never been an avid reader either. And so when the idea of me coming to sit down and read something, I'm but I need to that's one thing I've realized I need to work on even in these 2 years of being saved and everything. That's not just a book. You can treat any other book like a book. But that's not just a book. That is God's work and it's living. So you need to sit down and read it and know more about Him. And I can say that all day long, but the thing is you got to act on that. Right.
That's good.
But when it comes to, without trying to be biased and everything like that, for one, I think it's just when you're talking to somebody, have those Christian, you can have those godly values, but be compassionate as well. Hear the other person out. And that's for politics as well. Hear the other person out. Don't just jump on them and just you're wrong. That's not going to get you anywhere. And I know that, it's not easy to do. I get that. It's not. Sometimes your flesh just wants to just argue with that person. And you know what? They may argue, but you have to be the better person as you be kind with them because they'll think about that. If they're mean or ugly to you, but the thing about it is if you're kind to them, they'll think on that. And they'll realize I shouldn't have done that. It'll get them to thinking, and then maybe it'll lead them to Jesus. You never know, right?
Yeah.
So you just have to be really, I think, intentional about what you do.
I agree. For me, I find it really easy to read my Bible, to read it every day, to have a routine, but I struggle in prayer life relationally. Yeah. It's a constant effort that I have to make every single time. It's just not. It just doesn't come easy to me. Yeah. And for instance, Sarah on the other hand, she is very good relationally with God. It's so much easier for her, and I'm very jealous in that sense. But I think as Christians, we have to see our weaknesses. Yeah. And we have to pinpoint them, and we have to work on them. Yeah. And the thing about it is for an example for that, what you can do is get somebody to remind you, whatever that may be, hey, turn your phone off there at a certain time if you don't want to look at something at night or whenever, or, reading your Bible. Or, one thing that's helped me is if somebody asks me to, if they're hey, did you read your Bible? And then they ask me, what did you read? Yeah. Because then they convict you, well, I can't just make something up. Yeah. I've got to tell them what I read and I learned, right? Can't lie through that one.
No, because then you'd be sinning about that. So, you're so that really, because for some, I know they just, hey, did you read today? And that works. But, for me, at that point, you can just say yeah or no. Because there is people that have done that, and I've probably done that at some point. I'm not gonna be and say oh yeah, I've just said no every time. But I do think for sure that would be a valid strategy for people that are trying to help somebody else read, or if any situation like that, go deeper in your. I guess you're trying to help them. I guess is what I'm trying to say. Is that don't just ask them the bare minimum of hey, did you read it? Ask them what they learned. Be interested, because then that gets them interested too, in terms of they want to learn more. They might ask you questions or what, and there's a good back and forth, right? Yeah. So. Yeah,
that's good. Yeah. Something that made me think of a quote I heard when you were talking about politics and the Christian life and how to not seem biased and stuff is a pastor I heard say. He said, we aren't, as Christians, we aren't getting political. Politics got theological.
That's good. That's really good.
And I think that's so true. I think because it used to be those two things, politics and theology, were two separate things. But now with abortion so prevalent and all these other issues, these social issues, we as the church we would be dumb to stay out of it. Yeah.
Yeah. And my mom was looking at it. It's I think she read somewhere it's 40,000 Christians don't vote, and I'm are you kidding me? No. Get out and vote right now. Especially, even if you don't believe whatever, but, just do it. that is your civic duty to go vote. Like, I will tell you this right now. I don't care how you vote, just do it. You know? We got to have people that can, that can vote. If you can, do it. Because it's really important. I mean, because I know people say, I get it. Like, when I say this, I'm not trying to, like, sound crass or anything like that. Like, yes, God's got it. But, that's what we have to, that's what God's allowed us to do, is to fight against this stuff. Is to vote. It's not, we don't just have to sit on the sidelines and just wait for something to happen.
War's been won, but that don't mean we don't have to fight.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And I think that's what a lot of people that don't vote think, is that, something, you don't need me. Like, no, we do. Like, every person counts in that. And that's why I'm excited to vote for the first time.
Yeah, me too.
Heck yeah! I'm so ready for that.
I saw a thing that's going on in Florida where they're trying to pass. I don't know if you've heard about this or not, but they're trying. I think it's called the Fourth Amendment. In Florida is what they're calling it.
Okay.
In Florida, the abortion term, I believe, and like I said, I'm not an expert. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
Is you can have one up to 6 weeks. But this amendment is it's horrible, but it's basically you can have an abortion through 9 months, which is way past when the baby can feel pain, and it also says that you don't have to have parental consent for a minor.
What?
So if you have a daughter, she could go have an abortion without you even knowing it. And it also doesn't define what a healthcare provider is, so it doesn't even necessarily have to be a doctor.
Hold up, no.
And and the reason they're doing it, from what I could infer, was it would make Florida a tourist state. So people would go to Florida so that they could have abortions.
Oh my gosh.
And they're saying that they would estimate about 40,000 babies' lives would be killed each year from this if it got passed. I don't think it will, but if it did.
And you know what? It's so scary about that whole argument for me is, if I was born under that, those the regulations they have today, I wouldn't be here, and that really scares the heck out of me. Like, I know my parents wouldn't, but like, because of all the medical problems and stuff, that would be an option they would lay on the table. Back then, of course, they didn't. 2006, they didn't think of that.
Yeah. They
were like, you're either not going to make it or what. But they didn't think about that. But it really, that's why I'm so, like, even though I don't talk about it a ton, I am an advocate for that, because, like, it freaks me out. It's like, the fact that, there's God gave me a chance to be here, and we got to be a voice for the ones that aren't here yet.
Yeah, that's good. I feel, and I was telling someone about this the other day, it's just so stereotypical of the devil to attack the ones who can't defend themselves.
That's right. Yep.
And that's where the church has to rise up and stand against it.
Yeah.
Have you heard the story of Tim Tebow?
Yes. Well, I know what he does, but I don't know what story you're about to tell me.
I heard it a long time ago, so I'm probably a little off, but I'm pretty sure he was in a similar situation, and he, as a baby,
that would make sense.
The doctors were advocating to, I guess, abort him, and the mother said no, and look what he became today. So you're the next Tim Tebow.
And I don't, and I'm not like, again, I ain't saying like, oh look, but here's the thing about it. I'm doing this podcast right now, and I'm sitting here doing 100+ episodes right now, and that wouldn't have happened if God wouldn't have saved me right then.
Not the truth.
And it's so crazy for me to sit there and think about that. Like, I'm like, man, I've done all this stuff, and I'm not even 20 yet. Mm-hmm. Just imagine what God's gonna do when I'm older. I'm really excited about it.
That's absolutely awesome.
Yeah.
Speaking of the podcast, what are the long-term goals and aspirations of the podcast and your ministry? So, whether that's
I've actually wrote a few down when I did the roadmap. I did a roadmap all the way to November. Yes, I'm that far ahead. Praise God for that. But number one is always to glorify God in every episode we do. Second one was, and I've mentioned this already, to interview Phil and Brandon Lake, and also just kind of branch out a little bit, maybe dive deeper into some of these deeper questions like we're doing now. So I'm going to use this episode kind of as a springboard a little bit to kind of, because I won't lie, some of the questions are probably a bit base level. Like, people can give great answers to them, but let's dive deeper, and because I am getting a bit older and I'm going to the older ministries, let's see what, with the older people in them, let's see what they have to say in these more complicated and more, like, I guess, divisive questions.
Yeah.
And also just to, maybe because I've traveled a little bit. I went to Savannah and then I interviewed somebody up there. And maybe like just to go maybe around, Valdosta a little bit more and interview some more pastors. I've done that a little bit, but not much. Maybe do that a little bit more next year. I'd love to do that. Just kind of get to know the community a bit more. Because what's so neat about this whole podcast is there's only a few things that of everybody that's been on this podcast that they they have in common. They know Jesus, they have a story, and they know me, and they've been on this podcast. That's the three things they have in common. And what's so crazy is that there's some people that I've and like this is just God proving me wrong, which He's done that a lot. But there's been a few people where I was like, I really had to sit on and think about. I'm not gonna lie to you, but then God was like, I was like, man, God, that was one of the best episodes I've ever listened, or like stories I've listened to, and so I was glad I was so wrong, because like there's been a few times where I was worried, but then I was like, man, that was so good.
Was it me?
No.
Just kidding.
No. It was like earlier on in the podcast, And,
I gotcha.
But no, I promise you, yours was like one of the best ones.
Oh, thank you.
Just saying, the last time I checked, 50 plays on your first episode, by the way. So
how about that?
And it didn't. It only had It only had a little bit of promotion, only for me and probably your mom. That's it. So.
Well. After today's episode, yours will be the most.
I doubt
famous.
that. We got to beat 1,000, from the 1 year, by the way. So that might be a little difficult, but you never know, because God might use this in a big way.
Yeah, and especially now that it's the Davis's Mind podcast.
That's right. Not my mind, Davis's mind.
Yeah, so I think maybe now we'll blow up.
Yeah.
All right, Charlie. What can listeners do to support your podcast?
Okay, so for one big thing, if you're on Apple, you can, give it a review, which Davis has gladly done. And you scroll down to the bottom, and then you get 5 stars. I hope you give it 5 stars. Please do. And then write a review. Spotify, you can just review it. And if you're local in the area and you know me, or if you can get in touch with me, you can buy a T-shirt. $25, and they every $5 goes back to missions at Northside, and then the other 20 goes back to buy more T-shirts. And we're also working on hats as well. I'm really excited about those because we don't, because they'll be more expensive, sure. And I'm not gonna lie to you, I will straight up tell you right now where that money's going. That probably won't all of it go to missions. It'll probably go back to me, because I'm not gonna lie, I don't have a job right now and I need some money. But I just want to be transparent with you, because it is your money that you're spending to buy my stuff. Yeah. Because some people are like, so where's the money going? Like, where's it? Like, how are you buying it up? And I'm like, this is how we're doing it. Like, don't freak out. I'm not like scamming you or nothing. Because I get it, especially now, and we talked about this before we started, especially with how the economy is right now. Mm-hmm. You've really got to be careful about what you're buying. And, is it worthwhile to buy and things like that. But that's kind of what we're working on, and just be in prayer for like the goals that that I want to achieve. And I'm really excited to see where God takes it.
Well, that's good. And honestly, even in today's economy, I don't think there's a better investment that you could pour your $25 in than the Young Minds podcast.
Heck yeah.
So
I would agree. But man, do you have any other questions or anything like that, or are you good?
I think I'm all set.
Yeah, well, either I can close it out or you can. Up to you.
I'm gonna let you close it out. I'm gonna give you your podcast back.
Well, thanks for taking the reins for a day. But but man, it's been an honor to have you back on, and I couldn't have asked for a better person to take this on. And there was a question I did want to ask you. What was the hardest part about this whole? Because I literally let Davis pretty much do it, like everything. The questions, and then the questions, and then I've even asked him. We were kind of playing around with it with the title, but I'll still let you kind of the final say on it. So, what's been the hardest part, you think?
Undoubtedly, not even negotiable, not even close. Coming up with a title.
Dang right, yeah.
Not even close. It's so hard.
Like the questions, you can you can really play around with them, but the title, it's like, oh my gosh, like, and plus because I won't lie, I've got some corny titles out there because they're not great. I'm like, some of them are like, well, that's just gonna have to do because I can't think of nothing else.
Yeah.
But that's funny you say that, because honestly, I have to sit there and ask my mom, like, hey, do you think this is good? She's like, oh no, well, she'll give me an example, or like, and I'm like, I just don't like it, Mom. I'm sorry, I just don't like it. And she's like, oh, whatever. Like, you know, I'm, like, I'm sorry, but, you know, and I had to, like, I remember with yours, I had to sit on it. Like, we had one decided, and I was like, I just don't like it. I don't know. I just don't like it. And so I just went and changed it. But, like, one of the episodes you brought up was Jacob's. Like, his was, like, it was so corny. It's because he plays golf. I mean, staying out of the rough with Jacob Conger. What type of title is that? Like, so you know, like, well, it's not as funny as one of your favorite ones. You know, was it Getting Nifty with the Nortons?
Oh, yeah. I love that one.
that one I thought was like so. Baines and I had that's why I had to change my titles up some. Was Baines was getting on to me for he was like, dude, you got to stop using the word "getting" in front of your titles. I'm like, fine, I'll change it. And like, so I've had to like really think about. I might have to bring it back for this episode. How about that? An old school of it, like, you know, bring it back for this one. But I've had to like really change them up, and I even changed the intro up a little bit, like, and how I introduce. Like, I'll sometimes like I'll tell people I'm like, or I'll say the person's name now because like Bane's just like, you do it the same way. I'm like, well, too bad. It's not your podcast, is it? But I'm like, you know, but I've changed that up some, but. I'm really excited to use some of those. I mean, I won't lie, I will use some of those questions because they're really, really good. You put a lot of thought into those, and I just want to shout you out for a second because, like you, he said, you know, to audience listening, we had phone calls and things like that to make sure we got this right. And that means so much to me that you wanted to get this right because not everybody would take that much time and care into it. You know, because you knew that I've done this for 2 years straight, and you wanted to make sure I got it right, or you got it right, you know. And that means so much to me, man. But
well, thank you, Charlie. I appreciate that.
Of course. And, well, thank you for doing this, and I can't wait to see what God does with it.
Awesome.
With another episode of the Young Minds Podcast coming to a close, I just want to remind you that you are never alone, and faith is action. So let's get out there.